25% of the teachers, not if you're on the situation as they had in Philadelphia with a 6 weeks or a 2-month school strike, when teachers are permitted to vote of the qualified electors shall be as follows. I don't want to put it off on this mandatory contract thing. I want to put it out in such a way that the people of the county, the school district in which the election is held, I thought one of my children as a matter of fact, John Ben, who is now 17 and a junior over here at Austin High School, in the public school, was ridiculed to the point by a very incompetent teacher. Everything she'd do, she'd make him stand up in front of the class.
Nobody else is much concerned about it, as seems to be as much concerned as we are at this point.
Well, it'd be very clear in us sitting down thinking about this, trying to lay some contingency plans of what we would do if we get restricted and so forth, whether it's in police, fire, or sanitation. We could. Going down gas.
If we're running the bottom of the gas field, maybe we ought to buy out some in the
Gary? One other
Have to do in order to get to a better position.
Well, that storage tank, we make some plans for that?
we mentioned that was out of supply.
Is that?
These are locations of our field force.
I'm concerned with that big schooler I mentioned who comes to us for his first book, and we
Culture has not been.
All canned bananas are okay.
What does ATP and Form 801 and 802 mean?
Of the description of this type of thing, on how the program works and what they go. Mr. Craig, would you describe the food stamp program that they will get, for example, a family of 4 type of thing?
You want it in capital form, right?
Now, let's move to a little slideshow that Mrs. Jan sang. Young and old, the people of all races and creeds, food stamps make the difference.
I'm more concerned about the care for the children than I am the bricks and mortar, as have been made in earlier statements. But at the same time, once again, I go back to the waiting list. What happens to these children? What happens to the children who have been waiting for 6 years or more to get into a school?
Dr. Wade has indicated that they have a feeling that this can be the first of a new program that can eventually work to what the group that Mr. Campbell heads is actually working for.
That's a community facility.
A community facility.
Capacity as well as intake during the intake periods. Section back in the medical unit is also used.
Are you on the air? Tell me when you're.
have a better chance of being compatible with its neighbors.
If the bill...
She was the only one who could really speak. Did you, by any chance, listen to any of that?
I saw her on Newsroom.
You did?
She was on Newsroom, I believe, yeah.
Well, she, this was a...
Swinging away.
It's not all negative, however. We, the taxpayers, realize a substantial return on our investment. Spin-offs from the military and sea force can realize great economy of manpower, equipment, and money. Possession of a lightning force can give national command authority
Hey, Martha.
Huh?
Your twin.
Come on, baby.
The House gave final approval today to the competitive rate bill for car insurance, sending it to the governor, who sponsored it. The Senate gave final approval for requiring a vote this November on making the legislature meet every year and pay its members $15,000 a year. But then the Senate was halted as Senator Doc Blanchard of Lubbock began filibustering against a bill to give teachers 3-year contracts and automatically renew those contracts unless the school board gave a year's notice. Blanchard says it would protect incompetent teachers and open the way for unions and strikes. So when Oscar Mozzie of Dallas brought the bill up with enough votes to pass it, Blanchard began trying to talk it to death. Senators, however, hope Blanchard doesn't talk himself to death. He has a severe heart condition and has been on a reduced schedule. It was decided unanimously to allow Blanchard to be seated, the first time in history for a seated filibuster.
With only 3 days left of the legislative session, filibusters are critical because for every few minutes that a filibuster eats up, there's not going to be time to take up another bill. And of course that's the strategy, because at this point many senators become willing to sacrifice some other senator's bill to end that filibuster so that there'll be time to take up their own bill. This is Rosser McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move in Austin.
There had been no surprises at the retreat until Assistant City Manager Jim Favor came along this afternoon. And when he talked about the energy crisis, the council woke up in a hurry. Favor said the city ran short of gasoline yesterday at the downtown garage because the supplier's ability to deliver was outstripped by demand. Before the supplier could catch up, Favor said, the garage had gone about a half day with no gas. He told the council a fuel shortage is potentially the biggest problem the city has had in a long time. City Manager George Schrader said the trouble has been with the city's approach, which is based on the idea of an abundance of fuel. He in Favor said that won't be the case anymore, and Favor feels there might be more gasoline shortages for city vehicles.
We have been advised that we may expect temporary shortages, local shortages, from time to time during the summer, where their facilities will not be adequate to meet the necessary demand. So we expect that it may well happen again, yes.
The city officials don't expect this to mean there won't be enough gasoline for Dallas police cars, ambulances, and fire trucks this summer, but they can't guarantee it. And so the city is coming up with contingency plans to take care of that possibility. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
Today at Highland Park United Methodist Church, there was an information meeting where the Texas Department of Welfare and the U.S. Department of Agriculture explained their respective roles in the stamp program. Tom Cragen, director of the food stamps with the Texas Department of Welfare, explained that while commodities were free, food stamps are not, and how much a family pays is determined by the size of the family and their income.
If they have a household of four who is eligible for $112, has a net income of $150, they would pay then $41 to receive this $112 worth of food stamps. The difference between the $41 and the $112 then would be what we call a bonus coupons.
Bonus coupons, or food stamps as they are more commonly known, will be sold in certain post offices on a bi-monthly basis and will come in denominations of $2, $3, $10, and $20. The major task between now and September the 1st is educating the people who will use the stamps on how to budget them wisely and buy the right amount of food for their particular family.
Renee Castilla reporting for Channel 8 News on the Move.
We believe this money should be reallocated to other sources to benefit the mentally retarded.
The idea behind the tour was to emphasize that 70,485 children in Dallas County need mental health services, and Dallas County is not meeting the need. The first stop on the tour was the tiny Oak Lawn Treatment Center. Director Richard Adams explained to the wives of Mayor Wes Wise, Judge Lou Sterrett, and Mental Illness Court Judge Oswin Chrisman that this center treated court-referred DWI offenders and drug abusers who volunteer for treatment. The Mental Health Mental Retardation sponsored tour next visited the District 5 Comprehensive Mental Health Center. This is one of only 2 complete service centers the county has, and there are only 3 public outpatient centers exclusively for children. One facility noticeably absent from this tour was the Mental Evaluation Center, a facility which the Justice Department is interested in investigating because of alleged patient mistreatment. So considering the state of mental health care in the county, prevention is still the best medicine. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judy Hanna.
If you've always wondered what some of these big old mansions out on Swiss Avenue in East Dallas look like inside, you may get your chance to find out this weekend when a group of area residents out here throw open their doors for the first annual Swiss Avenue tour. $5 will get you a look at 6 of these big old beauties that reflect a kind of opulence and elegance that's long gone from the American scene.
Years ago, homes like these were the address in Dallas. This one, the Tom Vastine home, was the greatest thing to hit town back in 1923. But time has changed a lot of things, including the area just around Swiss Avenue. The area is now dotted with run-down former mansions, boarding houses, gas stations, and even an occasional jack-in-the-box or two. Well, this weekend's tour is sponsored by a group of Swiss Avenue homeowners, and they say they'll use the money they raise on the tour to fight for a historical zoning ordinance that's been kicking around for nearly 2 years now. The residents want the zoning to keep commercial development off these blocks. By the way, they say the historical zoning ordinance doesn't involve any federal aid to the area. It's just a protection to keep encroachment from going down these blocks. The fight to preserve or not preserve this area is centering these days on this vacant lot at the corner of Collette and Swiss. Developer J. Roger Crownwich wants to build a high-rise apartment here. The City Planning Commission originally turned down his building permit, but Crownwich went to court and got that ruling overturned. Now the city's appealing the case. The president of the Swiss Avenue Preservation League is Mrs. Ann Corton, and as you might guess, she's not too happy about the possibility of a future high-rise building on this lot.
Well, I do feel if you look around that the idea of 9 stories, and these are 2-story houses with an attic, so you will talk about 2.5 stories, it will look a little out of place, and also it'll be a complete block of concrete and glass with no grass, no trees.
Well, although the idea of saving these big homes for posterity is a nice one, some residents along the street say they'd welcome the high-rise. They say that zoning their property commercial would probably raise its value. And developer Roger Crownwich has been quoted as saying, "What's so historical about a vacant lot?" With statements like these flying about, this weekend's home tour takes on a little more of an urgent note than one might have thought. For News 8 on the Move, this is Arch Campbell.
At a time when some critics suggest or even demand that we disarm in the interest of peace, the Soviet Union moves forward in giant steps to increase its offensive capability. We talk of our defense budget, but how many stop to realize that the Soviets spend about 10% more on defense than the United States, with a gross national product about half of ours? You can also bet they get more for their money. They have forces about 40% greater than ours, yet thus far have been able to support them despite worldwide economic difficulties.
Happy birthday to you.
Birthday cake is not exactly a giraffe's cup of tea. Their idea of a birthday present would probably be a lifetime supply of skyscraper trees to munch on. But today they had to settle for what Tiny Sharon White was offering, a big bite of vanilla icing to celebrate Lion Country's first anniversary. However, these carnivorous creatures definitely have a sweet tooth. The only problem with them was how to attack this strange prey. If you could read this cat's mind, you'd probably hear it say, "What kind of food leaves me with white whiskers and sticky paws?" The answer is something a lion would never understand. A human's funny idea of how an animal should celebrate his birthday. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Martha McIntyre in Grand Prairie.
simmering feud between House and Senate conferees on ethics legislation broke through all the politeness into loud arguments today. 5 representatives and 5 senators are trying to compromise between the strong ethics bill of the House and the weak one of the Senate. In spite of strong sentiments, criticism has been mostly limited to a few sarcastic remarks. But when House Chairman Jim Nugent tried to get the Senate members to say yes or no to several proposals, they said they'd have to study them, and Nugent exploded.
Don't like my time being wasted sitting and waiting on you. And I've come to the meetings when you designated and reset the time and the place, and I'd just like to get something done. And maybe I'm just a wee bit suspicious that this delay is an attempt to kill the bill and not have one.
The resulting verbal melee included Senator Doc Blanchard, Senator Roy Herring, and Lieutenant Governor Bill Hobby. The meeting broke up with agreement to meet this evening. Later, the governor called the conferees in to urge them to agree on a bill. At that time, Nugent apologized. The governor indicated he doesn't favor as strong an ethics bill as the House wants, but more than the Senate. Many other conference committees are also working, at least 6 of them, on major bills, and there's only 2 days left. Senator Blanchard ended his sit-down filibuster against a bill to give teachers 3-year contracts and require a year's notice if they're not to be renewed. A parliamentary procedure took the bill down, and the author, Oscar Mosey, says it's dead. Senators had voted to have Blanchard sit to speak because of a heart condition, the first time ever. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News in Austin.
American Indians gathered at the Dreyfus House on White Rock Lake this afternoon to celebrate a $15,000 grant to the American Indian Center from the Office of Economic Opportunity. Residents of the Dallas County Boys Home, along with youngsters from the Fowler and Buckner homes, were on hand for the entertainment. The Indian Center helps Indians who move to Dallas from reservations to make the adjustment to urban living. But several months ago it ran out of operating funds. Today, Congressman Alan Steelman announced the OEO will fund the center for the next 6 months. He praised the center's efforts in finding employment, housing, and education for Dallas's new Indian residents.
Anderson McCrew lived in a different time, a time when people would pay to see a petrified man at the carnival. McCrew's body was called the 8th wonder of the world, and thousands paid to see it. Today, there wasn't a crowd, only a handful of people for a quiet funeral. When McCrew died back in 1913, no one realized it would be this long before he was buried. He was a traveling man, a hobo who was killed by a train in Marlin, Texas. A funeral home there preserved his body, but no one claimed it. Somehow it wound up with the carnival, and for the last 4 years had been in the Dallas basement of Mrs. L.G. Pace. A distant relative bought the body when the carnival began to lose money, and Mrs. Pace fell heir to it. But a funeral was out of the question. It cost too much, until today. The funeral was donated by a Dallas mortuary, and the plot was provided by Lincoln Memorial Cemetery. And that's what it took to get a final resting place for Anderson McCrew. No one will pay to see him anymore. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
Next matter.
solutions are largely a matter of boating safety education. Furthermore, we have recommended powers for certain sized boats, which are required under the Boating Safety Act of 1971, and we hope that through this business of education and regulation that we can decrease the boating safety accidents.
Dallas. And I hope that this 15,000...
We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain
dismissed.
Lloyd Stimson of the Fort Worth Taxpayers Association raised the issue, telling commissioners he feels the North Central Texas Council of Governments threatens to become a center of federalized control, usurping the authority of local governments. He cited examples where COG had, in his opinion, interfered in operation of local governmental agencies.
Have they in any way reduced duplication of effort, reduced bureaucratic inefficiencies, or assisted in reducing the tax burdens on the citizens? In order for any of these essentials to materialize, one of the two of you must go, you or COG. If both continue to function, rest assured that you will be reduced to salaried advisors and rubber stampers.
Are you aware of the fact that the governing body of COG is composed entirely, with the exception, I believe, of just a few citizen groups, are all elected officials, and from this area, they're elected officials that are elected by the people? And don't you think it'd be a little better to have one planning agency trying to work with all of us, rather than 110 cities in 14 different counties trying to plan for the future in a vast metroplex? I know that we're going to grow, and it just depends on whether our growth is orderly or not.
Commissioners Richardson and Anderson were not in court today. They're in Alaska on county business. It is known that Commissioner Richardson does have some fairly strong feelings about the power COG is taking. However, the other members of the court generally support the position taken by County Judge Howard Green, if perhaps a bit less vociferously. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News on the Move at the courthouse in Fort Worth.
There was as much accomplished today in Austin as any other day this session, although neither house was formally meeting. Numerous committees like this, however, met, some several times, and some will meet again tonight to try to settle on final versions of major bills. It's the first time in recent history that both houses were able to avoid meeting on the next to the last day of the session. It's not that everything is done, it's just that everything that isn't in a conference committee will not get done this time, and that includes many items. But there are conferences on ethics, such as these conferees. They're near agreement in concepts, but still have to agree on final language. Another bill near agreement was being hammered into shape by Representatives Dan Kubiak and DeWitt Hale, helped by education agency experts. Apparently, all school districts will get some additional help, but poorer ones more than others. Representative Dean Cobb is finalizing the death penalty bill after basic agreement by conferees. Other major bills agreed on, or nearly so, include marijuana and narcotics, lobby control, vending regulation, and others.